The federal government is beginning to implement President Trump's executive order protecting Second Amendment rights policy by policy. We're just about halfway through the first 100 days of this new administration, so that begs the question, how has it been for gun owners so far? Today, we're going to take a look at the Trump administration's actions on the Second Amendment. The good, like recent actions to restore gun rights, and where there's room for some improvement, like taking better control over the DOJ attorneys who are fighting against gun rights in the courts. Hi, I'm Ben, and you're watching the Minuteman Moment. But before we get into the video, I just wanted to take a second to let you know about GOA's annual convention, Goals. The Gun Owners Advocacy and Leadership Summit is set to be held August 9th and 10th of this year in Knoxville, Tennessee. Come out and visit with some of your favorite manufacturers, participate in activism training, and hear from the top voices in the Second Amendment community. The best part? This is free for GOA members. So sign up today using the link in the description. Okay, now back to the video. In Trump's first 100 days, we've seen some significant actions on protecting the Second Amendment. We've also seen some areas where the administration could focus and improve. Let's be clear. So far, we're excited by the Trump administration's willingness to not only work with gun rights organizations like GOA, but take legitimate action to protect and restore the Second Amendment. And also, we shouldn't forget that there could be severe consequences if the administration rushes to implement fixes. A mistake in this area through rushed policy could lead to successful lawsuits from anti-gun groups blocking pro-gun objectives. But there are a few things that we also feel should be pointed out as areas for improvement. Gun owners are upset with the delays, and the administration could certainly do a better job showing that it does care about the priorities of gun owners. So let's get into it with the good first. One of the first things that President Trump did upon returning to the White House was to abolish the unconstitutional Office of Gun Violence Prevention. If we're being honest, the real name for that office should have been the Office of Gun Control Implementation. The office itself served as nothing more than an official post for billionaire-backed gun control activists to have a direct line to government agencies to make sure that gun control would be implemented in every way that it possibly could. So good riddance. However, the most important thing President Trump did was issue an executive order in February titled Protecting Second Amendment Rights. Some important context here. In the history of the United States, President Trump is the only president to issue a pro-gun executive order. As you might know, gun control is something that is extremely hard to overturn. Just take the fight in Florida over open carry. Florida has a supermajority of Republicans, and there's a reluctance to take a stand on an issue that's an easy pro-gun win. They just won't do it. You'll see this play out on the federal level too, where during the George W. Bush administration, President Bush was reluctant to allow the Clinton-era assault weapons ban to expire and was initially actively against arming pilots. So let's take a few seconds to realize how significant of a step this is in the fight for gun rights. All of our members should pat themselves on the back because you helped make this happen.
Hello, gun owners of America. I'm so proud of your work. When I'm president, I will always listen to gun owners of America. I want to congratulate all of you because you've really come a long way in a short period of time. You're strong on guns, and that's the way we want it.
The executive order directs the Department of Justice to examine all orders, regulations, guidance, plans, international agreements, and any other actions of executive departments and agencies to assess any ongoing infringements of the Second Amendment rights of our citizens. It requires the DOJ to then present a plan of action to the president on what to do about these infringements. While President Trump certainly could have written an executive order that simply overturned the actions of the Biden administration, like the pistol brace rule, ghost gun rule, or the engaged in the business rule, it's good that they did the things this way. Since all the Biden-era rules are currently halted in some way, shape, or form by different court cases, including ours, overturning these rules could prevent a more permanent solution by the court. If another anti-gun administration is elected to the White House in the future, it's likely they'll just reissue those rules. Fighting these things and overturning them in the courts stops future infringements. In this way, the Trump administration is correct to take this approach, even if it is slower than what we would all like to see. Now, despite delays and even an extension of Attorney General Bondi's 30-day deadline to submit her report, we are starting to see the results come in. One of the first pro-gun wins based on this executive order is directly from the DOJ. Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a notice of proposed rulemaking that would return the federal restoration of gun rights to the Justice Department. This process of restoring rights to people who have committed nonviolent crimes had been delegated to the ATF since the 1970s, and has been blocked by an amendment from Senator Chuck Schumer since the 1990s. Now, this is a great first step. People like FPS Russia and others may finally be able to get their gun rights back. In another huge win for gun rights, HHS removed its insane designation of gun violence as a public health crisis. Under the Biden administration, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, issued a report claiming that gun violence was a public health crisis. Now, this is an anti-gun talking point that billionaire-funded gun control lobbies have been pushing for years. conflating legitimate public health crises like disease outbreaks with gun violence. Vivek Murthy even lied in his confirmation hearings when he stated that the question of guns wouldn't be his focus during his tenure in the Biden administration.
Do you think guns present a public health emergency?
Well, Senator, I think that gun violence, like any other form of violence, is a concern to me as a doctor who's taken care of many patients who have been the victims of violence. But I think the way we approach that issue, Senator, should be driven by science. I'm grateful that Congress has, on a bipartisan basis, put funds to study the origins of gun violence and how best to address it. But I'll tell you that my focus, Senator, is not on this issue. It is, and if I'm confirmed, it will be on COVID, on mental health, and on substance use disorders. These are the issues which I think are front and center in this moment. It's where I would put my attention. Today, for the first time in the history of our office, I am issuing a Surgeon General's advisory on firearm violence. It outlines the urgent threat firearm violence poses to the health and well-being of our country.
The objective of this ridiculous declaration was, of course, to push for more gun control. We did an entire video on this situation that we'll link in the description below. We have also seen public health weaponized against gun owners during the COVID lockdowns, where gun ranges were shut down and background checks were infinitely delayed. And of course, the tyrannical governor of New Mexico declared concealed carry permits invalid in Albuquerque pursuant to her public health authority.
Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute.
Eliminating this weaponization of the Surgeon General's public health advisory is a huge step in the right direction to prevent that at the federal level. And in a statement about that change, HHS said that they were complying with President Trump's Second Amendment executive order. We're also excited about the next pro-gun moves coming from the Trump administration, and we'll keep you updated as they happen. Last but not least of the good news is that Kash Patel was appointed acting director of the ATF. Kash is an ardent defender of the Second Amendment. He even spoke at our goals conference before the election.
I don't know too many other organizations in the United States of America that say their mandate comes literally from our founding fathers. That's how powerful this right is. But that's also how powerful the people on the other side who are coming for this right are working overtime to take it away from you. The perfect example for me is your mission mandate and how it intersects with everything that's wrong in the swamp, with everything that's wrong with Washington, D.C. And the good news is, if the gun owners of America show up on Election Day, we will wipe them out with a tidal wave.
We're looking forward to seeing some of these changes that Kash and his team will implement at the ATF. But now on to some of the issues that gun owners have had. First, you may realize that there's one thing in common with our issues. They're all from the Justice Department. And we know for a fact that the Department of Justice has career bureaucrats that are actively opposing the priorities of the Trump administration. One of the first signs of this was Pam Bondi having to fire ATF's chief counsel, a move that we greatly supported.
But we also, yesterday, I fired the general counsel from ATF. You know, these people were targeting gun owners. Not going to happen under this administration.
And of course, we all remember the chief diversity officer, Lisa Boykin, who changed her title in disobedience of President Trump's executive order on DEI. It seems as if the new administration is having trouble reining in these rogue bureaucrats. And here are a few of the resulting problems that we've been encountering. First off, is that the Department of Justice has moved to delay our engaged in the business case in Texas. The DOJ should allow this case to proceed, as our victory and subsequent overturning of this terrible Biden-era rule is good for gun owners and achieves the purpose of the president's executive order. Moving to stall or delay our victory in this case only hurts gun owners. Second, we've heard reports that force reset triggers are not being returned to their owners, even though a court has ruled that they are not machine guns, unlike what ATF falsely claimed. What could be ATF's motivation for holding on to law-abiding citizens' legally owned property? Either way, the DOJ could certainly step in to fix this issue. We recommend they do so as soon as possible. Last and most recently, we recently tweeted about a ruling in the case U.S. versus Peterson, where acting U.S. Attorney Michael M. Simpson agreed with an anti-gun ruling that suppressors are not arms and are therefore not protected under the Second Amendment. Career bureaucrats like this guy make it their life's mission to undermine your rights in courts. This cannot continue. In fact, this filing is in direct opposition to President Trump's executive order, which directs AG Bondi to help gun owners with all ongoing and potential litigation that affects the ability of Americans to exercise their Second Amendment rights. It sounds like this bureaucrat is in violation of this order. Here's hoping that the Trump administration continues to clean house at the DOJ.
In an example of how fast things are changing day to day, after filming this video, we received an update on the case US v. Peterson. In a new filing by the government, the Department of Justice says that it will reconsider its incorrect position that suppressors are not arms and are not protected by the Second Amendment.
In the meantime, for all of you watching, you can help us encourage the administration to continue acting on behalf of gun owners. We know for a fact that many people in important positions are paying great attention to X. They use X to flag scandals and get bureaucrats to fix problems that gets tractions in their mentions or becomes points of discussion. So, we're calling on GOA members to get on X, follow GOA, and other associated accounts to help us get the word out. Now, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with GOA's latest fights your rights.